All right, we're going to call to order the March 4th meeting of the West Sacramento City Council and the Redevelopment Successor Agency and Financing Authority. We're going to begin tonight, as we do each week, with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like to invite our guests to join the council and staff in the pledge, which tonight is going to be led by Washington Unified School District Trustee Sarah Kirby-Gonzalez.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the council did meet in closed session this evening to confer with our real property negotiator regarding negotiations with regard to parcels at 811 and 815 West Capitol Avenue, 305 3rd Street and 221 C Street, and 900 Bridge Street. And on the 900 Bridge Street item, I recused myself from consideration of that item. And also to confer with our labor negotiator regarding negotiations with department heads and with the Local 522, the West Sacramento Firefighters Association, and the other represented groups. No action was taken in either case. That brings us into item 1A, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the City Council. As is noted on our agenda, we're precluded by state law from taking action on any item that's brought up under item 1A or from actually even having a discussion about any item brought up under item 1A. So it's an opportunity for a public forum, but we can't do anything about it in the meeting itself. We ask anyone that wants to address the council on an item, this or any other agenda topic this evening, to please fill out one of the yellow cards that is available near the front door and turn it into the city clerk. In front of the clerk is a timer, and we use that timer to make sure everyone gets a chance to be heard at a reasonable hour. And so to that end, we ask that all comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Also in front of the clerk is a flip chart, an old-fashioned analog device that indicates which agenda item we are currently considering. We take the yellow request cards all the way up to the conclusion of the staff report on an agenda item. Once the council's questions or the public testimony has begun, we don't take any additional speaking requests on that item. So if you're here for an item other than 1A, which doesn't have a staff report, please be sure to get your yellow card in prior to the conclusion of the staff presentation on that item. We also recognize that for some folks, speaking in public is a challenge, and it causes discomfort and hives and vomiting and whatever. And so just to allow all of our friends and neighbors in the community to be able to have their say and their voice in the community, we do ask that there not be any boos or catcalls or actually even applause or other demonstrations, and we just try to maintain a civil, friendly neighborhood discourse here in the chambers. So with that, we have a lot of requests to speak under item 1A this evening. So we're going to start with Mr. Bilol.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. William Wall of West Sacramento for the record. And the good old shopping cart problem, I noticed a little over a block from here, somebody took one of the local shopping carts and took a hacksaw to it and cut off the wheels and made themselves like a furniture dolly out of the bottom. And so the basket without the wheels is waiting over there to be picked up. And actually, if it's hard for store managers to understand the problem, all they have to do is say, I'm not going to use my car or pickup for a month. I'll shop for my family, and I'll confine my shopping or whatever to using the bus. And if they find problems carrying all those groceries without taking a store cart off the lot, why, they'll start to understand why, and they'll see the incentive for providing the public an affordable shopping cart that would encourage the customer to shop at their store and get the shopping cart for them at the right price, so that it makes it smoother for the customer to come from his or her home to the store and buy groceries and a shopping cart if necessary. And that would cut down dramatically on the need to borrow those carts without bringing them back. And I've passed that word along to virtually every manager here in West Sacramento, so I think we're going to start seeing something from it. But it's, like I say, if they had to confine themselves to shopping by using just the bus, they'd soon find out, and I think they would agree that suitcase-shaped shopping cart would be the best deal all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowell. Curtis Wheelhouse.
Thank you. Hello, members of the council. Thank you for your time. 13 years ago, my neighbors and I bought our houses around Bermuda Court cul-de-sac. We were told at the time that the end of the cul-de-sac would be closed. It never was. Only 2 cul-de-sacs in our area are open to a busy road like Oakland Bay. For 13 years, no one has maintained or improved upon it. It has become a route for vandals and thieves to enter and easily escape our quiet neighborhood. We as neighbors had had enough and took it upon ourselves to improve and maintain this small piece of land no one had cared about. We put up a grape and berry arbor along with plants. We cleaned out a pile of garbage, removed the few jasmine plants that had survived the years of neglect. New neighbors and old ones that rarely come out came out. They helped and were excited about our little garden. It would hide the graffiti-covered electrical box and deter hooligans from entering and damaging our property. This is a cul-de-sac filled with little children, but they can't just play freely because Oakland Bay Drive is at its end. Cars and motorcycles often speed in excess of 50 miles per hour, day and night, down this stretch of road. We want to put up an edible wall of grapes and berries to keep our children away from the road. We want to plant 2 fruit trees that neighbors can congregate under and eat the fruit from. One city worker, when arguing about our garden, said, "If we let you do this, then every cul-de-sac will want to." To me, this sounds wonderful. A city filled with small community gardens bringing neighbors together. Paquito Park is an example of how this can go so well for the city. It is a 0.2-acre park that was neglected by the city and taken over by neighbors. The Bermuda Court Garden, though much smaller in scale, is no different. Since we started our little project only a few days ago, we saw more city trucks and personnel than we have in the last 13 years combined. All were there to gather evidence to use against us, instead of seeing how they could help us. We have been told that criminal charges may be brought up against us and that we must put it back how it was 13 years ago, to include bark that wasn't there when we started cleaning it up. We are not the ones to go after. We are good, hardworking, honest people who care about where we live. We only want to make West Sacramento a better place, a safer place. Don't miss this opportunity. Please work with us and help us. Thank you. And if you guys need to see anything, we do have the original documents that do show our cul-de-sac being closed, not with a throughfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheelhouse. Linda Music?
Excuse me.
I was calling on Linda
Okay.
Music next. Thanks.
I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Okay.
You're among
Hello?
neighbors.
Okay, yeah. Hello, and thank you for listening to me this evening. I'm here to discuss the Friends of the Main Drain, which is a community garden that's located in the Southport area. We've been in existence since '09, when we became a nonprofit, and we've always been proud of our relationship with the city and entered into an agreement with the city 2 years ago. And we think our garden exemplified the intent of that agreement in that it said, the city desires to encourage and facilitate use of public property in a manner which enhances and enriches the lives of the citizens of West Sacramento. The city finds the creation of a community garden on the property would be beneficial to the West Sacramento community. And the city did award us, I can't remember exactly what the award was for, but recognized our garden. Since our inception, our community our email has grown to 500 people that receive emails and attend our community work days on a routine basis. Recently, the Reclamation District, which came into our area and advised us that we were causing them difficulties in completing their work. My understanding is the Reclamation District has been there the whole time that we've been there, and we've never had any issues about the garden. We said we would like to meet with them and talk to them about the situation, because we understood that, yeah, in emergency, they would need to have access, and we would not want to preclude them from being able to do their work. We called and tried to set appointments. No one returned our calls. We were told by a city person that if they let us plant a garden, they'd have to let everybody plant the garden. We disagree with this because we are a nonprofit. We're not everybody. We've been there for a while. We have an agreement with the city. They still, the city employees still came out and said we had to move things, or else. I don't know what the or else is. They said they've contacted their attorneys, and they were totally within their rights to require us to move. So we pulled up our winter garden on the east side. That included cabbages, chard, onions, garlic. We will not be planting on that side of the garden now. On the west side of the garden, they said we had to move everything back that was between the slough and the electrical poles. So that included a grape arbor and 3 fruit trees. So we moved those things back.
Music, I've got to ask you to come to a conclusion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pretty strict about the 3 minutes, because then everyone
Anyway, my
goes-
point is, I don't know what's happened. We've been there for a long time. We're a good community. We've worked hard to develop our garden. What's changed? I don't understand.
Thanks. I have a question before you go, which is, you indicated the city employee
Yeah.
said they consulted with the, was it the city or the reclamation district? I just wanted to.
The city, the reclamation district refused to meet with us. They said,
Okay.
we do not have to negotiate with you, and we're not going to. But the city employee was, I guess, serving as somewhat a correspondence or liaison between us and them. They're the only ones who've talked to us, the city.
Thank you. Mr. Kristoff, did you have a question?
Well, the reclamation district is not the city, but at the same time, we should have a very good relationship with them. And so, I mean, I'm sure you're taking copious notes, and you'll be contacted on both the issues that we've heard this evening so far. Okay.
All right, thanks. Natasha Vasilopoulos? Is it Vasilopoulos? I'm going to, that's almost as hard as Cabaldan.
It was good. Good job. So I'm Natasha Vasilopoulos. Thank you for your time. I'm here on behalf of Bridgeway Play. We're a committee. We just want to let you know what we're up to. So we're a grassroots group in Bridgeway neighborhoods. We're fundraising to help improve the play opportunities for our children. Our drive is to support the city in improving play structures at Bridgeway Lakes Community Park. We realized there was a need for a park out there. There's a beautiful boathouse, there's a beautiful baseball field, but there's a lot of green space with a structure that's not very useful. The National Recreation of Parks Association recommends that the cities develop 6.25 to 10.5 acres of park space per 1,000 residents. Currently, Bridgeway has 2.4 acres per 1,000 residents, so it's a big gap there. Of the almost 5,000 residents of Bridgeway Lakes, 70% have families with young children. For most of us in the Bridgeway Lakes area, this is the only reasonable park that we can walk to in the area. Our community deserves a place for children to play and to learn and grow and develop a sense of self. We hope to create a foundation for broad-based community participation to create an ownership of the project. This creates a more unified neighborhood and community. We've already, since we've started, we've seen a big cohesion to this. We have a Facebook page with over 130 members. I think you guys have maybe heard about it a little bit. We've had a beautiful fall festival where all the community came together. People really want this. We see parks throughout the city, but we don't have one in Bridgeway Lakes. So that's our main goal. I'm also joined by other members of our committee. We have 13 members in our committee.
Leah, Jennifer, Alicia, and Sarah are also part of the committee, and they're also going to be speaking tonight about other aspects of our committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer Capitello.
Jennifer Capitello. Thank you so much for letting me be here tonight and present to you. I'm going to talk a little bit about our history, and I do want to say that we are working in partnership with the city. City staff have been excellent. We have been meeting with them on a regular basis. We've held community meetings together. We held a workshop where we got input from the community on what types of playground designs they would like to see out there. We had the stickers where you voted on what you liked on each of the playground structures. So we've been working really hand in hand with the city. I think the city recognizes that a new play structure is needed at Bridgeway Lakes Park, that the play structure that is there now is not sufficient. The city has set aside, you all, $50,000 for a new playground structure there, and has really challenged us as the community to raise funding for that. We have looked at a budget. We've been surprised how expensive playground equipment is. It's just outrageous. It's like $150,000 for just a regular play structure. So I feel for you that you've got to make these decisions about where you put your funding. But we have started our fundraising campaign. We are very thankful to Linda and her group at the Friends of the Main Drain. They came in and partnered with us. That was actually a recommendation from Councilman Johannesson that we reach out to them and see if we can form a partnership with them to get our 501c3 status. So anyone who's making a contribution now to Bridgeway Play is getting that tax-deductible donation through our fiscal sponsorship with Friends of the Main Drain. Our goal is really to match the city's money. So if the city can put up $50,000, we're committed to raising $50,000. And that is what we're hoping to do, is to put in a new structure at Bridgeway Lakes Park. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Kirby Gonzalez.
I was going to go last and wrap it all up, but I'll do that a little bit now.
Calling them in the order I was given
Thank
them.
you. So I just wanted to share what a terrific group this is. Many are not here tonight. It's an honor to be part of this group, and it's a group I think you should keep on your radar as you look to cultivate the community, because these are members who I know there's needs in many parts of town. We know that people want to get out in their communities all over town. And this is a group I see that could possibly mentor some of those folks to let them know, how can you do this in your neighborhood? How can you partner with the city, support the city to bring in partners, businesses, and everyone else? This is a group I see who possibly could do even more in Bridgeway Play, do an amphitheater, bring in the community events. I've met neighbors who I had never met before in my time there by coming together to these events. Maybe also even a foundation. You might be able to inspire some of the folks to do that too, much like how we have the West Sac Foundation. There could be a foundation for Parks and Rec, where this group does not need to be necessarily exclusive to Bridgeway Lakes. We know there's a need across the community, and so I just want you to keep them on your radar and keep cultivating that, and also to let you know that your staff has really been fabulous. So thank you to Sam, thank you to Andre, of course, thank you to Bob. They have met with this group many times, and so thank you very much. And on behalf of our kids and grandparents, as you know, as elected officials, we're very busy, so grandparents are constantly at my house walking kids to the park. It's really the walk that's meaningful, because once you get there, there's not much to do. And so we hope that you can support us in that, and it'll be great for the whole community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Leah Miller.
Good evening. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the benefit of the park, and some of these ladies have already pretty much explained what it is. But the goal that we came together to create this park and create a playground that would be great for children of all ages, and to develop a sense of community life outdoors and a gathering place that it creates a broad community participation and active, healthy living. We want it to be a place that's probably even more than a playground in a lot of ways, a place where we can create various programs, an amphitheater, movie nights, things like that in the future, and create this park to be the destination that it could be for our local community. All residents of West Sacramento will enjoy an improved playground at Bridgeway Lakes Park. It's a regional recreational amenity that people travel from all neighborhoods of West Sacramento and beyond to visit the park and to play. Local parks reduce crime, they increase home values, and provide recreational opportunities for children and families. Outdoor activities increase the physical and mental well-being of children and adults alike, and it's critical to the families, the community, and the voters of West Sacramento as a whole, not just the local area, that a new playground be put in our area.
Thank you. And you're probably guessing, Alicia Middleman, you're next.
Hi, Alicia Middleman. I want to talk about our fundraising efforts. As you can imagine, $50,000 is a lot of money to raise, but we're well on our way. One of the ways we hope to raise $25,000 is through tile sales. We'll be selling individual tiles about this big that families can paint and draw on, and they'll be installed at the park. We've also held community events. We had a very successful fall fundraiser or fall festival that a few of you attended, and we appreciate that. Thank you. We raised about $4,300 at that event, and the feedback from the community was overwhelming. They've asked for it every single year going forward. We hosted a Santa event in December where we had Santa come out, aka Sarah's dad, came and played Santa, and we did pictures with him.
Their children are watching. Their children are watching these meetings.
Well, the real Santa was busy. We had our very first movie night this last Friday at the Boathouse, and that was, we had about 25 to 30 kids come, and we had refreshments and raised a few $100s from that. We also plan in the next few weeks to deliver a letter in person to every home in Bridgeway Lakes and Bridgeway Island, letting them know what we're doing. The 13 of us will be walking the neighborhood, delivering those letters. We have two really big events coming up that we're excited about. The first one is Red, White, and Brew. It's March 21st. You have invitations there in front of you. Jackrabbit Brewery is doing a soft opening for us, so they're hosting the event. They're very excited about it. We're very excited to be able to showcase Jackrabbit Brewery. One of the owners happens to actually live in our neighborhood and is excited about the park. We're having wine donated by Barefoot Wines, beer by Jackrabbit, and appetizers and dessert for the price of the tickets, and it's an invite-only event, so we hope that some of you or all of you can make it. The next event we're having is Bridgeway Brew Carnival at YOLO Brewing Company. That'll be April 12th, and we'll send you some invites for that soon. This is a family-friendly event. We are going to have food trucks, games, music. YOLO Brewing is donating $1 of every pint back to us, and we'll be selling tickets for the food truck as well to be able to make some money for Bridgeway Play. Both of those breweries have just been incredibly supportive of our efforts, along with over 30 businesses in the community supporting our efforts through monetary donations or in-kind donations. And we've had great support also from the council up here and also from Senator Richard Pan and Assembly Member Kevin McCarty as well. So thank you, and we hope to see you at some of our future events.
All right, thank you. All right, that's all the requests we have under item 1A. It was not planned, but I think this was an interesting set of issues that came before us this evening. And as I indicated earlier, we are not going to be able to take any action or have a discussion about them. But I do want to say, in a very fundamental way, it's inspiring that the level of community-initiated action in the community, that rather than, like in so many other places in the country where people sit at home and say, I wish somebody would do something about that, or what's wrong with government, why aren't they doing something about that? And people might do that here too, but after that, then they get out and start just doing stuff. And trying to make take action to make their neighborhoods better and the city better, and realizing that when they say somebody should do something about this, that the somebody is us as individuals and as neighbors, and that's fantastic. That's terrific. That's what makes a healthy community. That's what's always made West Sacramento, a great town to be in. For a lot of years, because it was the only way anything could get done in the community. We didn't have the resources. There was no city for 120 years, so that was firmly ingrained in the culture of the community. And to see particularly some of our newer neighborhoods in Southport, and by newer in the last 10 years, take that same ethic up and extend the culture that has pervaded West Sacramento up till now is very, to me, it's deeply inspiring. And it's always been our practice to try to support that work in the community in every possible way. So all three of the issues that we heard tonight, I think, are examples of it. They're also examples of different approaches and different pitfalls that are always involved, because we're co-creating new neighborhoods and places and communities together as the city and as citizens and as neighborhood groups and what have you. And those are necessarily, as we do that, we run into a variety of challenges, and some of which are solved and some of which don't get solved and some of which are insurmountable, some of which aren't. Main Drain Parkway is a fantastic example. When they first came forward, Mr. Johannesson was a key leader in those early stages, and as a sort of a rogue community garden group, and started to want to do something, and took a lot of tries, a lot of experiments, a lot of trust in order to bring a project together and forward that has become an emblem throughout the community, and really an example throughout the region of really effective partnership and neighborhood activism with a purpose for serving the community as a whole. And that is why that project won the Civic Leadership Award a couple of years ago. But it was, even then, it was a challenge, because the fundamental issue driving that project was, we thought that there was going to be greater improvements along the main drain. And sometimes that happens because developers say things in their promotional materials, real estate agents say stuff in their tours that are not part of the city's, the city's plan, or they might be part of the city's plan for 50 years from now. And so they create expectations that can't always be met. And some of it is simply, our intention is to create a robust system of trails and pathways all over the place in the city, and to make all of our parkways at a high level. But we can't. We have $5 to do that this year. We'll have another $5 next year. It's going to take a long time to achieve that goal. And so having a neighborhood group step forward and say, well, okay, we get that, we understand that, we still want to do something about it. Can we partner in order to make that work? And by partner, we mean, can we figure out, city, how you'll allow us to do all the work in order for that to happen? And with a lot of back and forth, that has been an extraordinarily successful example. It's been an example for the whole community. The whole community has benefited from that work. And so I agree with Mr. Kristoff. I hope we'll follow up appropriately around these issues. And I know there's new leadership at the Reclamation District as well to work through those issues. What that project didn't do was cut the main drain neighborhood off from anywhere else. And so this issue that we're dealing with now around the particular cul-de-sac is a different set of issues, and sort of removing city improvements and creating barriers and taking out city landscaping. That's a different sort of approach, and that's much more problematic. So we're not going to be able to take action or have a discussion about it. But I think it would be important to learn from the main drain experience about what effective ways are in order to accomplish community gardens in ways that enhance the neighborhood, but also attend to our overall city plan for circulation. It is part of the city's plan that cul-de-sacs, for the most part, create pathways throughout, particularly in Southport, where cul-de-sacs are predominant, for a lot of the reasons that the Bridgeway Play group identified in terms of activity and walking. So those are going to have to be issues that get worked through in that dimension. And then finally, Bridgeway Play, which is clearly created a great movement in the neighborhood around trying to deal with a really pressing need in the community, which I think the council has been very supportive of, and as you said, the department has as well. And we're going through this and trying this really, in some sense, for the first time ever. But for those who've been in our meetings before, and I know this is true for Trustee Kirby Gonzalez, since she's a member of the school board, we're struggling elsewhere in the city. A place like Bright Park, which is in the heart of one of the city's oldest neighborhoods, which desperately needs basics in order to serve that neighborhood. And even with all the coaching and mentoring in the world, there isn't the wealth and income base to be able to support a neighborhood-based fundraising campaign in order to make significant improvements at that facility. So as we think through this, as we're learning from this experience together at Bridgeway Play, I think it's clear one of the issues we're going to have to be grappling with as a city, and I'm just saying this to both to Bridgeway Play and to others in the community, we have to solve this question. We had to deal with this a couple of years ago when there was speed hump request in the Lighthouse gated community, and we said, well, you're on the list for speed humps, but there's about 1,800 other neighborhoods in the city that would also like speed humps, and they were here, they were on the list first. And the response was, well, but we're rich enough to pay for it ourselves, and we can't. It's a tension for us, as we don't want to stop investments from getting made from folks who want to invest in community improvements, and at the same time, we have to solve a real problem of equity in our community, and also making sure that the whole city is rising together. And so I appreciate some of the comments around looking at a citywide foundation and looking at broader community benefit. It's not an argument not to do what Bridgeway Play is doing at all. I think there's a broad support and enthusiasm and applause for that work. But as a model, we're going to have to think about how we deal with this broader issue around what happens on the neighborhoods that don't have the kind of tremendous leadership and local business owners and what have you that can step forward and create special places in them. So, for those of you who came out, it was your first meeting. Thank you. I think we heard some inspiring stories. We are prepared in all of these cases to keep partnering and finding solutions to make these to help neighbors make their neighborhoods better. So. All right, that's one of the longest 1A responses I've ever given, but we had a lot of stuff up tonight, so. All right.
I'd just
Mr.
like
Kristoff.
to comment too. I saw the Public Works Director go over and talk to the gentleman over there, and I like that kind of interaction. I think that that's the proper approach. At least we get the dialogue started, and hopefully by having the dialogue we'll solve some of the problems. I mean, you're absolutely correct. Some of the problems they're complicated. They're not easy problems to solve. But at the same time, this council, for a number of years, has really taken an effort to try to solve these problems so that we can lift all the boats throughout the whole community. And so I appreciate you guys coming and speaking and talking about it, because I think this opens up that dialogue, and so thank you.
All right, thank you. And with that, we're going to move on to council communications. Are there any reports of the communications this evening? Ms. Sandine?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking of Bright Park, I'd like to report out on the city school 2x2 that happened on February 2nd. In fact, at that meeting, we heard from advocates and a presentation about Bright Park, and in our discussion at the city school 2x2, we talked about the need for the city to work in conjunction with the schools and some of the barriers that we as a city were having in terms of not owning that land and not being able to go forward with some grant applications. So I want to thank our city manager. Following that meeting, he sent a communication to the superintendent to ask for some action so that we can start to move forward one direction or another. So in addition to that, we also talked about some West Sac Recreation Center ideas for some after-hour social activities with the high school students, and some collaborations with Parks and Rec, and then also potentially some wellness programs for Washington Unified School District employees. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kristoff?
I'll be pretty brief. Attended two different meetings. LAFCO was last Thursday, and the major thing that we were doing was a workshop for shared services. And basically what we were doing is we were brainstorming project ideas and trying to get, from a county-wide perspective, shared services that can, in essence, save each one of the entities, not only each one of the cities, but also the unincorporated areas, save some money. So we were looking at that, and I was pretty proud of our city of West Sacramento, both Carol Richardson and Marty Tuttle, our city manager. They attended, so pretty impressed. And then the other one was regional sand. A regional sand is sewer and sanitation from a regional perspective. And the major issue there was the submittal of a bid to do some work. It was a $114 million project, so it's a very expensive project. Regional Sand is trying to accomplish $2 billion worth of work to make sure we follow federal, state guidelines as far as sanitation goes, and what we put into the river, the delta, and so forth. But three firms submitted bids, and two firms hadn't really followed state law. And they did not have a licensed contractor or a subcontractor at the time of opening the bids. And our staff had indicated that that was really not appropriate. The subcontractors do need to have valid California California licensed companies, and two of those firms did not have that at the time of opening the bids, but they were the two of the lower bids. So our board went, and we went with a little higher bid, and I'm sure we will probably hear about it sometime in the future, because that's an awful lot of money. And so, but we'll see what happens. And I supported the higher bid, and it's really not like me because I'm sort of a tightwad, but I supported the higher bid because they had followed all the rules and all the regulations that originally had been laid out. So you may hear about that.
All right, I already read about it. All right,
Oh, I've heard about it.
Other reports? Mayor Pro Tem Ledesma?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple things to report on briefly. First is on February 9th, we had a meeting, the Yolo County Transportation District. It was a relatively short meeting, but we did go through and authorize the district to retrofit several buses and rehabilitate buses. So that's a big expense and big upgrade for the district. And also, we went through, as Mr. Lowell knows, because he's been a very big advocate of how we address flip seat wheelchair access in our buses. So, Mr. Lowell, thank you for your input onto that item at the Transportation District. They're doing their best to try to make some changes to the way we're going about that, and we're looking at that. So, anyways, that's been an ongoing item in the Transportation District. Also, on the 23rd, we had a meeting of the Yolo Natural Heritage Program. It was a couple of updates there. One is getting audit results and state controllers reports on the financial health of the organization remains strong. The JPA is doing well. Audit results were clean for our second straight year, so that's terrific for that JPA. We started to go through budgeting process, and the big budget items within there are looking at expanding the staff, administrative staff, sometime in the next fiscal year. So that will be something new as we prepare to put that JPA into a full-time agency with a plan. And then the other item we talked about was preparing for the second administrative draft plan of the conservation plan that we are developing with the state and with the federal wildlife agencies. We're expecting that in March, which was a huge accomplishment for this JPA to be able to go from just a few years ago, no plan whatsoever, no timeline for a plan, that we'll have actually a workable draft at the end of this month, in fact. So we'll be looking forward to that. The state and the feds have been absolutely cooperative. We've seen some of the figures come back in terms of the cost of the plan. And I'd say that there's going to be some things that those stakeholders that are involved in this, including the participating agencies, may at first raise their eyebrow about, but I think what they see what the state is allowing us to do, to have an affordable plan for the county for conservation of habitat in our area. I think we've come a long way. So anyway, you should be reading more about that in the next 30 days when the plan comes out. So I'll also make mention that last Friday, our staff hosted Assemblymember Kevin McCarty, who graciously came out and spent 3 hours touring our parks and our recreation center. He spent time, 3 hours from 9 to 12. I joined for about an hour at the riverfront, looking at what we're proposing at the Mill Street Pier, at Rayleigh's Dock, and then also down at some of the local parks. And so I want to thank staff for taking the time to show him around. He's very impressed with our neighborhood. He did tour Bright Park, saw the improvements we're trying to make there. He's also aware of the changes were on the parks and the systems we have going in the Southport area. So I want to thank him publicly for coming out and spending time in our community. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one, the Sacramento Council of Governments the Transportation Committee meeting is tomorrow, but this, it seems like I'm always having to do, I want to just flag a major controversy that's about to flare up that has pretty significant implications for us. Concurrent with the adoption of the blueprint by SACOG almost a decade ago now, we agreed to several major projects, one of which was a parkway project that would link Elk Grove to Folsom, essentially through Rancho Cordova. The idea of bridging, not literally, but bridging two major areas where there's a lot of commuting. But through a parkway, there was a lot of objections by the environmental community to the project. It narrowly made it into the plan actually, Mr. Tuttle was the executive director of SACOG at the time, and with a commitment that it would be a parkway that would not be lots of on-ramps and off-ramps for purposes of new development being built and what have you. So it was put in the plan a while ago. At the time, then, the local governments along the route of that what's now called the Connector Project, not the Parkway Project, formed their own JPA and have been working on planning for that project. It's a very expensive project, long run. I mean, it would be the most expensive transportation project in the region at completion. It's been slow going in terms of figuring out a funding strategy and how to pay for it and when and all of that. They have, I don't know how to put this lightly, the director and several members of their board are asking now that SACOG take money off the top for the regional transportation allocations and give it to that project in an amount that is probably 10 times larger than their capability to spend. More as a sort of like as a demonstration of love for the project, essentially. Is this important or not? And if it's important, then we should be allocated $100 million or whatever. But their capacity to actually deliver that doesn't justify that much money. And the growth projections along the line are not sufficient to justify the project in that time period. The Connector board is arguing that they have a very important project because of all of the growth and development that it's going to induce, which was exactly the point against it in the first place. The executive director and the chair of the Connector have been publicly raising questions about whether the streetcar project should move forward, and at least one of them has urged property owners to vote no on the Sacramento assessment for the streetcar because they think it's competing with them for their project. I have pointed out that the streetcar has doesn't have a cent of regional funding in it for the construction phase. That's $75 million of federal money and $75 million worth of money from the two cities and our local taxpayers. So there's no competition at all. But they continue to raise this issue. If they succeed at off the top, in addition to being one of the worst precedents that could be set, ever for regional transportation planning, it's also just straight money in terms of the project. What it would compete with would be our future funding for the bridge across the river, or for other key improvements that are important in our community and in the rest of the urban core of the region, where we have, as a region, agreed most population population and job growth is going to occur over the next 30 years, and therefore where the transportation investments need to happen. So it's bubbling up very quickly because the SACOG board has to vote on the final Metropolitan Transportation Plan next month. But I wanted to make, it may come up in other venues, in other boards that members of that council are on, so I want to make sure that you are aware of that emerging issue. It's hard, at this point, I don't know that there's anyone that agrees with these, but even among those local governments, there's a lot of disagreement about whether this tactic is appropriate or not. But if it comes to a head, it could be bloody, so. All right, with that then, item 1C is appointments to boards and commissions. We have none of those this evening. So the next is our presentation item, item 2, which is recognition of poster contest winners in support of the California 2014 Flood Preparedness Week. Is there a motion on the resolution of the proclamation?
So move.
I'll second.
Oh, wait. All right, then they're not actually motions, sorry. So,
Well, let's take a
so we're going to ask
ceremonial vote.
Dennis to do a brief presentation of what the item is and.
Yes, I'll just give a quick introduction. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As you know, the week of the October 20th of 2014 was recognized as the California Flood Preparedness Week. The city joined hands with West Safeca and participated in various outreach activities and awareness activities. We partnered with Washington Unified School District and reached out to the children for awareness for flood preparedness. One of those activities was a poster contest we held, and the students participated overwhelmingly. We received over 200 entries for that contest. The theme was Plan, Pack, and Protect. We received the entries and we judged them based on originality, creativity, and visual clarity and conveying the theme. We picked one winner from each of the grades, fourth grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade. And the winners are here today. The winner for the fourth grade was...
Wait, I was going to announce those.
Oh, okay. All right. So staff requests the council to recognize these winners by presenting them the certificate of achievement.
All right, and I was going to invite Trustee Sarah Kirby-Gonzalez, since this is a joint project of the city and the school district, to join me in making the presentations to the students. All right, but Dennis, will you help us with which poster is which?
Up there.
All right. So our first certificate of achievement for the Flood Preparedness Week poster contest is for grade 6. And would you like to read the winner?
Is it Gabriel Hyde? Did I say that correct? Gabrielle. Oh, Gabrielle Hyde.
Well, congratulations. Why don't you come over and tell us a little bit about the poster? And if we put it back over here, will it be seen? Okay. So if you use the mic, it's complicated here. If you use the microphone to tell us about it, and then it's going to go on the screens for here and for folks at home to be able to see it as well. So, Gabrielle, tell us a little bit about your poster.
Well, my dad gave me a paper, so it really helped me a lot. It told me a few facts, so I just wrote some of them down for, yeah. So
if there's one thing that someone should know about being ready for a flood, what would you say?
plan, pack, and protect.
All right, you're on message. Very good. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
And here's yours. Oh, Sarah has yours. All right. Want to come over for a photo? All right, next is the a winner in the poster contest for 2014 Flood Preparedness Week for grade 5.
And this is Westmore Oaks Elementary, Kathy Liu.
Tell us a little bit about it.
I was really surprised when I won because I didn't expect me to win. I expected my best friend to win, so
So what was your concept for the poster?
I wanted to show what could possibly happen if you didn't prepare for the flood. So I thought that you should plan for the future.
Great. And have you done all these things at home?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Still working on it.
Very good. All right, congratulations. Then finally, for grade 4, the grade 4 winner in the poster contest for 2014 Flood Preparedness Week.
From Westmore Oaks is Alexis Freed.
Say a few words about your poster.
I didn't expect myself to win.
So what's your poster saying? What's the concept here?
Well, I made this poster about how, what are the safest routes to get out of the flood, and what you should have during a flood, and who you should keep in mind of having with you.
Great, fantastic. That's a great job. All right.
While the mayor is returning, I just wanted to say congratulations to all the winners and all those who participated. I was lucky enough to come out to Westmore Oaks on the kickoff week and do the press conference there and meet a lot of you there, and that was a lot of fun. That was a great day spending it with you. We got to learn about flood protection, and you guys were really great. And so congratulations and thank you for participating.
All right, thank you so much. Congratulations to all the winners and to all the young people in the community that participated in the contest. And it's as Mayor Pro Tem Ledesma said, it's such an important issue that, especially in a drought period, we often don't think about the fact that we're still living behind levees, and we're doing our best. Our levees are getting improved, all around the city. We'll have the best possible level of flood protection that you can have, but there's no perfect level of flood protection, and so it's always important to be prepared. And the good news is it's pretty simple and easy to be prepared. You don't need any special equipment that is not available at Raley's or Target or anywhere else in town. But just getting knowledge, sharing that knowledge with your family members, and getting some of the basic equipment and supplies can put you way ahead of the game, both to protect yourself and also to make sure that you or your family members can get to one another, and that we don't have to send whatever the few emergency services that we're going to have available during an event like that they're going where they really are needed, because the rest of us have done all of our work in advance to prepare. So thanks to the kids for helping get the message out, and thanks to Public Works for leading that effort. So. All right, that brings us into the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 7. Are there any items on consent to remove or for separate question or comment?
I just had a question on item 6.
All right. Any others? Okay, item 6 is consideration of second reading and adoption of ordinance 15-1, amending Chapter 2.20 of the Municipal Code concerning boards and commissions. Mayor Pro Tem Ledesma.
Thank you. I just had a question, and I want to thank my colleagues on the council who heard this the first time around when I was absent. But this is a great change to our boards and commissions, so thanks for moving this forward. I just had a question on, as these are formed, I think they are formed, and timing of first meeting. The one thing I'm trying to, and I'll bring it up again, maybe it's more appropriate at the end, is for the Environment and Utilities Commission. I think they're the ones who would probably need to hear about the second administrative draft of the Yellow Conservation Plan. That
The clerk has this, you have a proposed schedule?
Yeah, we've actually got a draft schedule proposed, and the orientation is going to take place on April 6th, so staff can proceed with contacting the members right away and get their first meeting scheduled. For the environment and utilities, we're tentatively looking at the first Monday of a month, which actually is April 6th, but they don't have to necessarily start then.
Okay.
If you've got an item that you definitely want them to hear,
Yeah,
staff can accommodate that.
Yeah, and I bring it up because that second administrative draft is going to have a pretty quick turnaround to start getting comments in. So, I think this is great because obviously it would engage these boards and commissions, the expertise they're bringing very clearly, and it's a very important resource for that plan. So I just want to put that out there.
Well, I think perhaps then we could have them start maybe on the second Monday, so they meet immediately after the orientation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we scheduled the orientation to be almost coincident with the moment that this ordinance takes effect, because there's the 30-day waiting period, so but we should be able to go from there. So. All right, if there's no other questions or comments on consent, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Ledesma, second by Mr. Johannesson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Consent agenda is adopted. Item 8 is consideration of Resolution 15-12, creating the Pioneer Bluff Preferential Parking Permit Program, Area D. Mr. Doherty.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Doherty, Transportation Program Specialist with the Public Works Department. The item before you this evening is a resolution to establish the Pioneer Bluff Preferred Parking Program Area D. The Pioneer Bluff has historically been an industrial area with South River Road ending at a cul-de-sac at the Deepwater Channel. Multiple property owners along South River Road had striped employee parking within the city right away. And since the opening of the McGowan Bridge in December, connecting South River Road to Locks Drive and Southport, the increased traffic along that stretch has created a safety concern for that perpendicular parking that has been created. Because of the perpendicular nature of that parking, to exit that parking, one has to back out into traffic to proceed. Due to this, the city is limiting the amount of parking, or is proposing limiting the amount of parking along South River Road to permit only through this project. This is part of a multiple phase project, and we will also include striping of South River Road in June and the creation of angular parking spaces which improve the entrance and exiting and eliminate the backing out into the traffic way. The permit program itself will be comprised of a limited number of permits allowed to each business, and the number of those permits will be established based on how we can safely accommodate, how many spaces we can safely accommodate in front of their business. The permit will be designed to hang from a rearview mirror and will be numerically identified to the permit holder. They will be approximately $10 in cost and be renewed every 2 years. There should be approximately 64 permits issued throughout the entire stretch of South River Road. It is estimated, the permit boundary, the Area D boundary that we have that I indicated in attachment 2 of the staff report does cover the entire district of Pioneer Bluff. And that was done to be consistent with how we have done these parking districts throughout the city in the past, and creates flexibility for the future if road alignments change. It gives the city the most amount of flexibility without coming back to the council to adjust in the boundaries. Staff has met directly with several of the property owners through the Pioneer Bluff District and to explain the program, to make adjustments to see how to best fit the need of their business during this transition. Overall, the feedback was very positive. We did receive one concern that the boundary district did cover the private property of the district, and I had assured that we do not have any precedent of managing parking on private property through permit programs in the city as of now. So with this concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
All right, are there questions for staff at this time?
I do.
Mr. Kristoff.
Yeah, as I drive down South River Road, I think I see more than 64 cars that are parked along the road. How are we going to provide enough space so that it's not inconvenient for the workers to get to and from work? And at the same time have parallel parking that probably reduces the actual number of spaces, or reduces the framework of the available area to park.
The current draft plan that has been shown to property owners recently did some level of parallel parking, which you're right, will reduce pretty dramatically the amount of spaces. But didn't, overall, there's a very slight reduction. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me. Most of the adjustments have been more to an angled parking to accommodate, the overall goal is to not back out directly. And if we can angle that, that gives us more space for maneuverability to be able to pull out without entering the traffic area. So there was really a very small impact to the number of spaces, except for some of the areas that were maybe parking on unimproved surfaces and things like that we don't have a lot of control over.
Okay.
All right, we have one request to speak on this item, so Mr. Kuno, Dick.
Hey, Dick.
Yeah, Dick's back.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dick Cunha. I'm with Clark Trucking. We're last building on the right on South River Road. I spoke with Mr. Toft and Mr. Doherty concerning this, and I don't have an issue with the realignment of the parking spaces as such. However, if you look at the analysis presented to you and the conclusion, they are inconsistent, and my concern is it's over the recommended adoption of the resolution is overbroad compared to what is being asked. I think the issue is, let's not back into the right-of-way, which in our area is 60 feet, up further to 15th is 80 feet. That's fine, I get it, it's about safety, it's about not impeding traffic. However, if you look at the attachment, it covers 130 acres that would be bound by this parking resolution. I don't think that's appropriate. If you read the analysis, the last two sentences on the first paragraph, it talks strictly about parking in the right-of-way, and second, restriping. If you go to the conclusion, it states that create the boundary preferential parking program in Area D, which is attached, which covers the entire 130 acres. So I don't think it's consistent, and I think it's overbroad. And I would just suggest that if you want to adopt a recommendation, that you strike the attachment and just indicate that the parking, preferential parking, be allowed to exist within the right-of-way as it currently exists along South River Road. It's real simple. And strike the attachment because it's not appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, Mr. Doherty, anything further? Is this the issue? This is the issue that you were describing toward the conclusion of your remarks?
That is correct, yes.
Right. In the absence of the attachment, how would we know who's eligible to get the permits?
Every property owner or business that fronts South River Road will be, we're going to work with them independently to issue the number of spaces and number of permits that they are allowed to have spaces in front of their business. Say, I'll use example for Clark Pacific has approximately 34 spaces currently now there, and we're just, so they'll be issued 34.
But the maps for the other, for area A and B or whatever, they include the maps that describe the districts, include the parcels.
Yes.
They're not simply a map of the street, of the right-of-way itself.
They are
so
not.
This is, I mean, this is simply this is the continuation of the same procedure that we've used in order to, because the permit accrues to the owner of the parcel, not to the right-of-way itself.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Mayor Pro Tem Ledesma?
Well, and I'm just trying to clarify that, so is the keeping the attachment as is, well, the attachment is part of this resolution, because it refers to the attachment in the resolution. We're confident that there's no miscommunication of who's eligible for the permits, and that's the part that was brought up in terms of, I think that's the point that's being made, that it's only eligible to those who front that area. So I just want to make sure that if we're passing it as is with the attachment, it would suggest that we not have the attachment. I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah, but I don't understand. I mean, if you don't have if you don't.
I'm trying to get this clear in my mind.
Okay.
That's, I'm
I believe
sorry.
we need a
That's what I'm
boundary
asking.
to have the district created, because we need to define the boundary that it exists.
Right, the district has to include those parcels. And it's in the same way that the district that surrounds River City, the old River City High School site, includes all the homes that are in the district. That doesn't mean we're regulating parking in your driveway or in your garage, but it's necessary in order to determine which parcels, and to be able to display which parcels are in, I mean, they have to be in a geographic district. If it's only the right-of-way, then nobody's in the district.
I understand. I just want to make sure that it's consistent based on the feedback from the applicant. So it sounds like we're okay.
Mr. Johannesson?
Yeah, I guess, why, one of the things that's different about this area than the other areas we've put in these parking plans is we've got a transition plan here, and we've got businesses that are going to be reconfigured over the next, number of years, whereas other districts, there may not really be much of anything there. Why couldn't we have a map, if we have a map at all, and I agree that, we probably need some kind of district boundary, to kind of limit the district to, the areas of parcels around the road. So basically, you'd have a line down the road that would go into right-of-way. Because I think the concern is that this Area D now is going to include all these parcels. It's clearly not intended to do that. I think the intent of this is to improve safety along South River Road and not get into the depths of private property. So why couldn't you just redraw this a little more specific to the road itself rather than by parcel?
If I might, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that we maintain a certain consistency with how we've done it elsewhere in the city. There's a potential to create more confusion by drawing lines differently on this particular parking area. The resolution itself, the second section, is the operative sentence, and it says it applies to public parking only, public street parking only. So I do think that part's, in my mind, it's quite clear that it doesn't apply outside of public streets.
Yeah, if we can beef that up. But I don't know if this, well, I mean, it's clear. I don't know. I mean, the map itself is not the enabling ordinance. It's really the resolution. So, okay.
Well, I sort of agree with where Mr. Johannesson was headed. I mean, why is it necessary that we include 130 acres? When in essence, what we're really trying to do is put something in place that allows for the parking places to not, spaces to not be too threatening when they leave. It's easy to get into the space, that's no problem, but it's exiting because you have to back out. So why couldn't it be an area that is along South River Road? And why do we need the extra 130 acres?
Mr. Mayor, as a former planning commissioner, when I think of things like this, I'm thinking of the flexibility that this kind of approach of an overlay allows, because not all lots stay as they are. Not all owners, sometimes there are split lots, there's easements that are given into property. And so for me, we would start to create something that we'd have to remember to change something if we were specifically along that roadway that would align with any kind of change that happens with land use. So I think this actually covers it fairly well, and we won't have to revisit this over and over. So that's just, again, from my recent history serving on the Planning Commission.
I do think it's also, I mean, this is the district and the boundaries are conferring a benefit. They are not creating an obligation or imposing anything on anyone. This is a map of who gets permits. It's not a map of who has to do something else. So it seems to me like if we were to narrow it more, and I actually looked at the same thing, because there are parcels that don't front on South River Road that exist, although there aren't businesses that do that. But there are parcels in this district that do not actually front on the road. And therefore, they would be ineligible to get a permit if we didn't have the district drawn in this way. Whereas today, they may be parking on the street and then they have an agreement with an adjacent property owner to be able to, to walk through their property in order or to, to get through, to enter. Or those parcels could be co-owned by the same business today, but maybe not later. And so this is really, if it were me, I would want to be in this map. Not to be carved out of it, because then then I'm not getting the benefit. It's not requiring anything of me. I actually thought about it in a different way, which was, why are we even doing it this way? Because I worry a little bit about, as opposed to saying just in front of your parcel, and we're gonna deal with that only. Because I do worry a little bit about creating a tradable market for these spaces. Because our long-term, most of these spaces, I don't mean like 3 years from now, but long-term, most of these spaces will not exist any longer when this road is improved. And so we should be, over time, reducing that demand. We don't reduce that demand if we create a really scarce good and then we allow anyone in the district to use it. So then you say, one of the users says, well, I won't use my parking because you'll pay me $10,000 in order to do that. That's not an optimal outcome for us. So you probably have considered this, but I think thinking about how this ultimately, reduces the demand and does not create use of the street for parking, that's not by the business that's right in front of it would be a useful thing. So I actually had the opposite reaction. It was like, oh, this district allows too much to occur in that way. I mean, I drove down the Mike McGowan Bridge and down the street the other day, and of course saw somebody biking up the other side of the street, and a couple jogging down the same street as the same side of the street that I was on. And then as I got closer, down towards the southern edge, towards the bridge itself, a woman in a stroller, making her way from Southport to Riverwalk Park and Old Sacramento, and maybe here, which is a perfectly rational choice to make because there's not as many cars as Jefferson and what have you. The transition is there; it is happening. And it will, the moment when somebody backing out or truck stacking up causes a stroller on truck collision is coming if we don't keep taking steps. It doesn't mean transforming everything immediately, but we've got to stay on a path. So this approach makes sense. I just think tooling it to make sure that we are moving in the right direction over time is important. I'm not saying close everything down for the one stroller, but we need to recognize that just whatever our policies are, people are using this facility for more than what it had been before. The 2-year timeframe and the nominal fee, if we get to a point, when we get to the point where we're reconfiguring this road and removing some or all of these spaces, will we be constrained by the 2-year permits and the fee that has been paid? Are we creating any sort of vested rights at least during those periods where we can't, if we got a Tiger grant, for example, and it had a build it or lose it provision, you got 18 months to do this, and we had a bunch of outstanding permits for 2 years, would that in some way prevent us from completing the transportation project because we'd created a vested right for which the property owners had paid?
That was a consideration that I took in. I balanced it between that, like a 2-year and maybe a 1-year. I just was trying not to impose a multiple-step process on the property owners there.
Yeah.
But I completely understand the concern. This is a program that maybe we can build in a provision, if that does happen, that we could then work with the property owners to pull the permits back.
Yeah, that makes more, I don't want to suggest that we go to like 1-year permits or 5-minute permits. So, a long, permit with a reasonable duration so that there's some certainty for the property owner and for us makes sense. But there needs to be some way for us to unwind. And if that unwinding, explicitly says, and we'll refund the permit fee or whatever, but we need to be able to, when the Mike McGowan Bridge was a fantastic example of a project that we didn't know we were going to do until we got lucky, until we got unlucky and then lucky. And we have to be prepared in order to take advantage of those opportunities. So to me, that's helpful. I mean, I've had the conversation with the city manager about our preferential parking generally and how that has to adapt to the new places that we're creating, because I think that what we've done on this residential, the B area that I now live in, I used to live in the A area, I think, before, is a fundamentally different place, and so is D. And so, while keeping these frameworks in place is a useful exercise, which is why the map debate is a good one, we shouldn't be slavish to them, because the original area, the very first one that we created, or at least Mr. Christoph created, around the old River City High School, was because existing residents were being impacted by a heavy user nearby. That's a different thing than us creating a whole new area out of scratch. And I'm a little concerned that we're creating a whole bunch of preferential parking and expectations that street parking is going to be available to both residents and businesses that isn't going to be there. And it can't sustainably be there in the kind of place that's getting created. So this one I think is appropriate, but we need to keep an eye on that and not just replicate the Westmore Oaks preferential parking permit area in other locations, as a photocopy essentially. So.
Chris, have you had some conversation with Mr. Cunha about the issues that he brought up?
Yes, we spoke today yesterday and today on the phone, and we met with him personally last week, Friday, about the program.
And you could not, it sounds like you're 180 degrees away from where he wants to go.
We could adjust the boundary, and that was he approached me with that yesterday, and I felt that it was probably too late to do that before going to council. So what I wanted to do was to have that discussion here. And so we did talk, and I still feel it provides us the most amount of flexibility moving forward, but we can amend it if that is something you want to do.
Well, I don't know how anybody else feels about that. I mean, I would like to try to address Mr. Cunha's concerns, but I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that.
I'm certainly open to doing that. I think it might make sense to adopt this, which is the actual resolution, including the attachment, and ask staff to look at some of the alternatives, that we haven't provided any, but that we've hinted that we hope might exist. And if they can come back with an alternative that would meet that. So we would be able to stay on track with the implementation of our transition plan while still trying to see if there's some other alternatives that would
Mr. Mayor?
Because this doesn't, we've certainly solved much more difficult challenges than this.
I would think so.
Mr. Mayor,
City
Council,
Manager.
could we come back then, either have you approve this resolution or come back and with a revised resolution that might include the provision to revoke the permit if within 30 days and refund the money if a, urgent project need came in, and then come back with a little clarification on the boundary
map.
itself? Because one of the issues is that we contemplate additional public streets in this district as well. And this would be a longer, this map would cover that issue as well. So we could adopt the resolution tonight and come back, or you could simply put this over and give us additional time to flesh out the comments we heard tonight.
All right, now that you say that, I hadn't actually thought about that at all, but that makes a lot, because there's no reason why we would necessarily want this district, why we would want to have automatic permit parking for businesses on any new streets that we might create in this area. So, okay, now, all right, now I think we all agree that.
Well, if I can throw one more piece into there, the ordinance that we're operating under actually, in terms of the duration of the permit, it says that's to be determined by the finance director. What's been proposed is a 2-year permit. If you want to give direction that you would rather have it be a different period, or 2 years is fine, so long as it's terminable on 30 days' notice with a refund of the amount that was paid, I think you could just direct that. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the resolution.
Yeah, okay. All right, so it sounds like the best option is just to get it right the first time, so come back.
Come back with this, yeah.
At the next meeting, or try to resolve this. Okay. All right, is there any objection then to continuing this item?
No, I have no objection to continuing the item. I just hope some dialogue continues to flow between the two parties.
Okay, terrific. Then with that objection, that'll be the order. All right, council calendar, Mr. Tuttle.
The Assistant City Manager, Carol Richardson's out with some family issues today, but just briefly on the calendar, we have the Redevelopment Successor Agency Oversight Board meeting next Thursday at 3 o'clock. And it has been mentioned by the city clerk, the board and commission orientation on April 6th, and that starts at 4 o'clock. It'd be great if council members could check in. I guess at that meeting, there's ethics training, so you would not have to stay the entire time. I know the mayor is going to speak at that session as well.
Yeah, we're going to do the strategic plan, the update and overview on the council strategic planning workshop and framework for the year. So. All right, any questions on the calendar? Seeing none, city manager report?
Just briefly, as Mayor Pro Tem Ledesma mentioned, Assemblymember McCartney was here last Friday. He expressed a lot of interest in assisting us with the issues we're having on Rayleigh's dock, as well as streetcar funding. I thought it was good use of our time. He seemed very, very supportive, and we're getting back to him on our issue with Rayleigh Dock this week. Parish Garage, I mentioned it to Councilman Johannesson. We're working with the Historical Society to move their storage items out of Parish Garage. Staff's done a good job in terms of finding an alternative location at city-owned property on Harbor as a temporary area for that. Our goal is to clear out Parish Garage by the end of March and then come back to the council with some sort of RFP or RFI process for Parish Garage. I just want to give you a heads up on that. And today was the official opening of Wicked Witch here across the street at the community center, and had a lot of business, so seemed like they're off to a good start.
It was a soft opening.
They were open, they took cash.
All right. Okay, any questions on the city manager report? City attorney report? Staff direction from members of the council? We have no future agenda item requests. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Johansson moves and Mr. Kristoff seconds that the meeting be adjourned. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.